Okay, good morning, Tony Page. How are you?
Rabbi, good morning. I'm very well, thank you, Baruch Hashem. And you?
I'm very well. It's so lovely to see you, and you're looking very dapper as usual. I'm much better, thank God. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very good. Thank you very much, Rabbi.
You are looking very dapper for a Monday morning working from home. Tell me about that.
Well, I think that I feel better myself if I'm sort of dressed as I would normally dress. And I'm dealing with clients on the phone. I'm talking to suppliers and venues. And although all the hotels are closed in town, there's still got a lot of work involved because all the work that we had at the end of March and in April and May, that's all shifted. And all the weddings have got to be replanned for later on in the year and the beginning of next year. And but the stuff for July and August onwards, we're still hoping, and we won't know until a bit later on. My personal opinion is that we are coming into the worst part of this whole scenario now, and I believe that by the end of April, after Pesach, at the end of April, we should see a light at the end of this tunnel. And I think that light will get brighter as May goes on, and hopefully by the end of May, the confidence will return to the members of the shul and our clients and our friends, and that they will think in terms of planning for the future during the month of June, and hopefully things will open up nicely by the end of June for everyone to return back to elements of normal life. We need to, to ensure that the third and fourth quarter of this year are going to be good.
Tony, you're not somebody who needs an introduction. You're very well known, both within St. John's Wood and in the much wider Jewish community. But tell us a little bit about how long you've been coming to St. John's Wood Synagogue, what made you join. Tell us a little bit about that. I'm sure our viewers would be really interested to hear that.
We moved from Stanmore Shul about 30 years ago. We were members of Stanmore Shul. I married at Stanmore Shul, and then we moved from there to Little Venice. And I looked around at which shuls to join, and St. John's Wood was remarkable in terms of its friendliness and welcoming thought. It was so much, I mean, Stanmore Shul, where I grew up, I went to Cheder and everything else in my life there. It was nothing compared to the warmth and the comfort that I found at St. John's Wood Synagogue. It was remarkable. And there were
I take no credit. That was long before my time. I take no credit.
There were a few people there, talking 30 years ago, who were remarkable. Benny Schmidt-Bodner, that's Marion Dinah's father and Tony's father-in-law. He was a remarkable man, and he was always a beacon. And then there were other faces in that community. And Jaime, who I adored, who passed away a couple of years ago, was such a special man.
He was one of the founders of the Kiddush Club, right?
His nephew, Irving, passed away yesterday. And we're all in the community are feeling a sense of sadness. But going back to the question that you asked me, was that I felt very, very warm and welcomed into that community, much more so than in Stanmore, where I'd grown up. And St. John's Wood had this welcoming feeling about it, which I actually think that it still has.
Tony, tell me something. Your reputation as a superb caterer is renowned. You've made me a greater person, I mean physically greater person, over the last 3-4 years in St. John's Wood. And we all love and look forward to your special Kiddushim. But tell us a little bit about your professional life. How did you get into catering? How did it all begin? I'm sure everyone's so interested to know.
It's a rather boring story, but very briefly, at the age of 15, I went to 14, I didn't really know what I went to do. I was in school in Stanmore, and I went to a careers convention in Wealdstone. It was in like the town hall there, and there was all different things. And there was this, flying RAF. I thought, that's really what I'd love to do, is fly a plane. And then you had to have physics and maths and all these complicated things. I thought, this is niche for me. So then next to it was hotel and catering. And I've always loved cooking, and I've always loved dabbling in the kitchen and experimenting. And I adore good service. Even at the age of 14 or 15, I would always did like part-time jobs which involved the elements of service. So I thought, you know what, I could do that. And I had this picture in the back of my mind. There was a guy in a black jacket and pinstripes, And he would say, you go here, and you go there, and you go here. And he sits on the throne and just orders everyone around. I thought, you know what? I'll have some of that. So I got into Westminster Hotel School. It was a 3-year course, 2 years at their premises in Vincent Square. And then the final year was set up by the British Hotel and Restaurant Association as a transfer. And I worked at the Plaza Athénée in Paris. And I worked there in various departments, starting in the relais and the wine cellar and the accounts and the kitchen. And then at the end of the time, I was really loving Paris. I loved it, really awful. It was fabulous. And I had a great venue I lived in. There's a long story about where I was living and what I was doing living in Montparnasse. But nevertheless, I'd had a secure footing there. And I was completely independent, which was marvelous. But then they offered me a job working in room service, working nights. And that involved 3 people. There was a head waiter, there was a chef de rang, and there was a commis. I was a commis, 3 of us working. And we would share the tips between the 3 of us. And at that time, they didn't have electronic keys. So the reception would call up and say, this people are arriving late. Oh, it was working nights. It was working from 11 at night till 7 in the morning. So they'd ring down from reception and say, look, they're coming up. They've left the keys in that room. We need to do it. So I said, okay, they come up. And they're always coming in with dodgy people where they give you a nice drink, so keep them. So it was all that going on. It was fantastic. And then the room service during the night, they come with a bottle of champagne. You're going to have like a meal. Oh, it was wonderful. It wasn't so
amazing.
Hard.
Sounds like good times.
It was very strict about the hours you could work. You couldn't work more than 8 hours, which is perfect. Unlike in Switzerland, we had to work every hour that God gave you. This was a different thing. And then I worked 4 days on and 3 days off. And when I had my days off, I used to work in Maxime's, the restaurant, which at that time had 3 Michelin stars in the Place Madeleine, near there. And I used to work on service. I used to work in the kitchen. I mean, the kitchens in those days, they had straw on the floor to pick up all the droppings and all those stuff.
Gosh.
It was not straw, sawdust.
Before the days of health and safety.
It was a remarkable experience. And then when I came back to London, I wanted to become the manager of a 5-star hotel, and I'm going up through the ranks. And I went to a dinner at the King David Suite, and the owners at the time were the Chavering family, and they offered me a job to become the manager of the King David Suite, which, they offered me double what I was earning as a food and beverage manager within a 5-star hotel. I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go for a year. I didn't come from background, but my parents were kosher at home, and we like traditional. So anyway, I loved it. It was like putting water on a dry sponge. They only had the same menus. They had like the chicken soup, and they had like chicken, and they had the water ice. It was a posh meal that I had out of tongue. Starter was always melon or grapefruit, or it was anyway. We changed the whole thing. The lamb came in, the rack, all this crepes and set. I started introducing, started doing beautiful rib of beef, and the menu was changed.
It's almost lunchtime. You're getting me hungry.
Landed, and the Chavering family were wonderful to me. But then when the Iraq War came in '91 and the business shrank, and the family wanted more from me than I was really felt comfortable with, and I wasn't that convinced that the family were. I felt as though I was going to be doing all the work, and the rest of the family would benefit from that. So I decided to start my own business. It was a tough time because the business had shrunk. The Scuds were coming into Tel Aviv at that time, and it was not very comfortable for everyone. But started then, and it's grown, and we're very comfortable with where we are. We're working.
You've done amazing.
We have an exclusive with the Dorchester and the Savoy and the Claridge's and the Guildhall, and we work at all the various.
Tell me something.
Very few places we don't go into.
You've raised standards of kosher catering beyond everyone's wildest dreams. You can now go to a kosher function and have the most exquisite meals. I want to know, do you have any personal favorites of kosher food? What's my personal favorite is your egg and onion on Shabbos morning at the Kiddush Club. But I want to hear about your favorites. Tell us, what do you like? What do you enjoy cooking? Do you get involved in cooking?
Actually, your favorite of the egg and onion is not mine. I prefer the one where the onions are really nice and crispy. And
crispy onion on top,
sautéed off, rather than the raw onion that goes in the normal egg and onion. But yeah, there's I'm a man of simple taste. I like simple flavors, and I think that whether you're having a rack of lamb, it's all about the season. For example, now lamb is just beautiful. We've got new spring lamb is just beyond good. I love natural simple things, whether we're doing, I'm a bit of an old fat, I'm talking about a guy who's old. I like the best smoked salmon, which is just freshly carved, just simple. And then you can have a rack of lamb. It can be done with the most beautiful sauces, or simple, or just beautifully raised with pink in the middle and lovely spring vegetables. And, the chocolate fondant we do served in a copper saucepan is beyond good. I mean, hello.
It's nearly lunchtime. I think we better stop this. Tell me something else. Right now, I wanted actually to do this interview from my kitchen, but as you can imagine, Dina, along with many, many other Rebbetzins and mothers and women and ladies are busy, and men as well, are busy cooking in their kitchens, preparing for Passover. Do you have any insider tips how to keep things calm around this time of year, especially? Any suggestions for those who are preparing for Passover?
Well, I do believe that the simpler the product, the easier life will be. You don't need to have tons of sweet things and tons of cakes to make it work. Foreman's and Goldstein's do a smoked salmon for Pesach, which is fantastic. And if you've got plenty of that in the fridge with salads, it's gorgeous. The white asparagus that are coming in now from Italy and from Argenteuil in France, the white asparagus, they're really thick, they're beautiful, with a vinaigrette.
Has it been affected at all? Has any of the import business been affected? If you said from Italy, or anything being affected by the current situation in terms of imports?
To my understanding, as I see it, nothing has been affected. Everything seems to be coming in. There's plentiful supply of absolutely everything. We're buying in a very narrow window of what we buy. We buy the best tomatoes, which are coming online now. The season's beginning. The best white asparagus, which is now as a month. There's a month of this white asparagus. It's not. There's some Germans. There's some stuff from Peru on the market, which is not very good. But the real stuff, the white asparagus from also get it from Germany, but it's got to be the thick ones. It's just too gorgeous with a vinaigrette or sauce hollandaise or sauce mousseline. And then you've got lovely fish. If you've got some nice sole or some sea bass or some cod, how bad can that be? And you buy some lamb and you cook up. It's simple. We're all stuck at home. I actually think you're better off to have a very simple breakfast. You can make matzo ball and fresh juice, and then nice coffee. You can have a very pleasant lunch with some fish or some grilled meat and a salad, and then in the evening, just simple food, just with some matzo and some, a bit more of that smoked salmon that's in the fridge.
You like your smoked salmon, Tony?
It's not rocket science. It's no different actually today. There's not a lot of difference having the food at Pesach as it is to having the food the rest of the year.
Sure.
Because we're eating more naturally, more cleanly. We're not worrying about baking things with bread and with flour. It's not necessary.
Tony, let me ask you the following. I mean, obviously, the world economy is in trouble. People are worried. How do you feel this is impacting the hospitality industry? And it must be a challenging time for every business, especially caterers. Functions not taking place. A lot of the charity dinners are being cancelled. What's your kind of advice for perhaps smaller businesses? Advice to people in the hospitality industry to get through this period?
Rabbi, thank you very much for asking me that question. I don't think I'm that qualified or that much of a guru to give you the economics of this thing. As I see it, that everyone in the hospitality industry is suffering terribly. And that's everyone from the chefs, the porters, the proprietors, the waiters. Everyone involved in it is going to suffer, and there's nothing we can do about it. We've got 3-4 months to go through, maybe 5 months of this heartache, but at the end of it, if you're still around, we're going to be much stronger and much better for it. But it's going to be a tough time. There's no question about it. I mean, the restaurants are closed. Hotels, all the hotels are closed. And the hospitality industry, which, forget about my end of it, which of course has been wiped out 3.5 months of work. You've got all these huge things that go on from the golf, the racing, the tennis, and this is all involved in the hospitality industry, and all the kosher section provides an element of service to all those things. So it's not it's not an easy question to answer, not for me. I think you just got to hang in there, be supportive of your team that you've got with you, and pay them as much as you possibly can of what they're contracted to receive. I'm of the opinion that if you can maintain the same team and pay them what they've been earning before, and you've got to dig deep into your own pockets to ensure that, then they're going to feel more comfortable. All my team working for me, they've got mortgages and children, and I don't want to put that pressure on them. I think we'll have the team will be even stronger at the end of it. I'm supporting them, which I intend to do to the maximum, or until the best of my ability, but I shall do it to the maximum.
Tony, God should bless you. I've got one final question for you. A lot of people have said to me that this whole experience has told them how much they appreciate shul, how much they miss that social interaction, that connection. What is the first Shabbat in St. John's Wood Synagogue back going to look like? What's the first Tony Page in St. John's Wood Synagogue going to look like? How excited are you to get back to shul?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is go and have a l'chaim with my friends very early, 9 o'clock before the job starts. Then we're going to go into shul.
After you've done a bit, obviously.
Everybody. There'll be a great warmth. And then we'll go and have another l'chaim, which will be even nicer because there'll be more people there. And we'll have some chopped herring, some egg and onion. Oh, how nice will that be? And smoked salmon. And then come down back to shul, finish the service off, and we'll go back and have another drink. Then my friends from shul will come back to me, we'll have some chillent and have a beautiful lunch. And that's what I miss. I miss I miss all the friends, and I miss the whole community. So please God, we should be back together.
That very soon in good health.
Later.
Please God, in good health. I wish you and Sonia and all the family a happy and healthy Passover. Thank you so much. This has been so interesting. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you very much indeed.
God
Ciao
bless.
for now. Bye.